Annenberg is one of the schools within the university, and you can certainly find out more about us, right? We have been traditionally placed quite well in the QS rankings for our discipline, and it's been well established. We've been number 2 for several years, and then we have been, we have been better. We have been not often, but sometimes lower ranked, right? So within the field of communication, media, I think certainly we are quite well known. Now, the communication management program is one of 6 programs within the School of Communication, right? And there are also other master's programs in the School of Journalism. Today we will focus on the School of Communication. And traditionally, we have been very active with students from China since 2009. I was appointed as a faculty in 2007, so I witnessed essentially the growth for a better part of 14, 15 years. In terms of numbers, we are Annenberg's largest graduate program still. And then we admit between 130 to 150 students every year enrolled, right? And it's a 2-year program. Approximately out of these numbers, half hail from China. So we had a long sustained interest, right? And these are our numbers specifically from Chinese nationals, right? Right, from the last cycle, the class that is started in 23, we have 780 applicants last year, and there's a sort of a funnel, and 420 were interviewed, of which 220 were offered admission and 83 enrolled. So you can tell it's a fairly large class. 83% is a little bit more than half of the incoming class, right? And then we can talk about the program of study for the degree. It's 32 academic units, and that comprises of 8 classes. Our classes are 4 units per class, right? And we start in August, right? So if you are admitted, you will start in August of 24, and you will graduate in May of 26, like most international students have this pace, right? We have options of finishing earlier, but this is the standard pace of for most international students, right? There is for at least for communication management, there is often a requirement from international students to complete 1 class of supplementary writing, right? We have a very strong emphasis on our language proficiency, and this is often required for students who did not grow up in an English-speaking country or an education system, right? So this is something to be aware of. Right now, our focus within the program, right, for international students, these have been the primary areas of interest, right? We blend both academics and professional practice really quite well, and the four areas are really, there are 2, but they're split into different areas, sub areas, right? We have marketing communication as our primary area of interest for most of our students, and then within that area of interest, there's I think a very strong emerging focus on analytics and research, right, in the marketing context. And then we are, of course, being in Hollywood, we are known for entertainment management, right? I'm not saying we are a film school, because we are not, right? But almost every role, except for being behind the camera, many of our graduates fulfill, right? And we can talk about that quickly later. Right? And of course, today, creator and influencer economy has been being more mainstream. I'm very proud to say that we are probably one of the first communication programs to offer classes in that. And in fact, right, one of the faculty who established those classes is with us today, right? Freddie Nager, who's now faculty at the digital social media program. Right? So this is probably our most important slide, and I'll spend some time to sort of talk about this, right? And so many of the applicants will often ask, what are our selection criteria? What are you looking for, right? What standards should I reach? And this is a good kind of like starting point, right? And I would say for us to consider a candidate seriously, we are looking at these particular criteria. Sometimes they are standardized test scores, right? Sometimes they are GPA. And we usually start with a standardized test scores, right? The TOEFL, we will probably ask for a minimum of about, or it is it's a screening, right? We will look at those with a TOEFL of 108 or better, IELTS, right? 7.5, right? IELTS is not as fine as TOEFL, but 7.5 is the starting point. Right? So we will also look at the TOEFL subscores, right? TOEFL subscores, writing 27 and speaking at least 25, right? So together, these represent a set, and then the equivalent in IELTS writing and IELTS speaking. We put 6.5, but it's really probably closer to 7, okay? Right. When you are applying, you should be ready to submit your test results with your profile picture, right? That's really quite important. Right now, we are not requiring the GRE or GMAT, right? It's a sort of a consequence of the pandemic, and we've been doing I think quite reasonably well without those, right? For American or rather applicants with degrees from American undergraduate institutions, the GPA becomes a very important point of reference for us, right? So we are looking at GPA of probably to at least 3.6 plus, right? I can tell you that the admitted candidates last year, the average GPA from American universities is 3.8. So really very strong academic performance throughout. All right. So if you are if you're from a university in China, we certainly have our standards, and most of our candidates are from the 985 that tier, right? Or otherwise very strong in languages, very strong communication programs. Okay. Right. So this is a very important slide, right? This session is recorded, so you can refer to what I said again. Right. Then let me show you the next slide. Okay. Right. So we also require 2 letters of recommendation. One of them must be from a professor, right? Someone who's knows can speak with your academic work, right? We will like the letter to be on an official letterhead where possible, right? And then a true signature, right? We want to see that this person is actually have written the letter, so it can't be a blank sheet and typed out words and just a type name. Okay. We want to see the contact email, right, and number where possible, and if possible, a LinkedIn profile, a LinkedIn or university profile, right? So this is what we are looking for within the letters of recommendation. Okay. Then the remaining items, personal statement, quite important. Then followed by your resume, your writing sample, right? Then of course in evaluating applicant for admissions, the interview performance is really very important. Okay, right? And we can talk about the interview in detail a little, somewhat. All right. There are notes about official transcripts and all of that. I refer you to our official website for admissions, right? And you'll get a lot more detail from there. We'll have a QR code for you to scan later, right? Right now, very important, right? Since the pandemic, right, home-based tests have been very common, and across the years, we had definitely had received applications that were really challenging us in terms of whether we are careful in our review or not, right? So I have quite a few stories. I won't tell them here, right? But certainly, buying test scores, right? ETS and other organizations are now very aggressive. I certainly don't advise you do that, right? Because this time to see your real foundation, right? You won't do well if you attempt any of these, right? And certainly we know now AI, right? ChatGPT since November. We are also very careful about that, right? So this is to let uh, encourage us as to show our real efforts and our true ability. Okay. You are asking, right? You are asking often like how much will it cost, right? So it's a major factor in your decisions, and these are the numbers that we have, right? That I think is quite true. The tuition, this is per year, right? And USC's at least for the master's program is really quite simple. It's a per unit charge, right? So there are 32 units, and every year you can see what is the unit price for graduate degrees, right? And it's approximately, I think, by the time you enter, it'll probably be 2,000, probably 2,300 plus, right? So you can multiply that by 32 units. And then there are additional fees, health insurance, health services, particularly important, and then the assortment of different fees for technology services and all of that. Okay, all right. Now, Los Angeles, you may heard, not a cheap place to live, right? And lots of information you can find on Xiaohongshu and other places in terms of what it would cost. I would say it varies a good deal, right? Depends on your standard and your particular lifestyle. And I know I've given a fairly broad range, right? 24,000, 40,000 US per year. So in all, right, for the whole program for 2 years, I would say it's certainly more than 1 million RMB on average. And of course, depending on the exchange rate, the dollar against the yuan, right? So I would say the last calculation I did that's reflective of a reasonable standard of living is probably 1.1 million, right? 1,100 renminbi. Okay. Mm. And then for that, what do you get, right? What do you get? These are our graduate career, right? These are real companies who hired our graduates from communication management. And this slide shows more the entertainment management route, right? Certainly companies that we recognize, right? And whether they are within China or in sometimes right in the US, right? So I won't go through them one by one. All right. So you can take a moment to take a look at where our graduates land. And then the next slide are the tech companies 大厂, right? And these are certainly have been places where our graduates are now working, right? So again, across whether it's in the US or in China, right? So these are the places that you often will find our graduates. Okay, all right. And so certainly games have been area that hired quite a number of our students. And then, of course, if you many of our students, right, their dream position is with top FMCG companies, whether it's P&G or today, right, racing, right, Luckin Coffee is really dominating the news. And these are all places that we have graduates, right, in different capacities. and also like some very top advertising and public relations firms, right, whose logos you recognize at the bottom, right? So these are where our graduates have been, and all of these are not hypothetical, right? These are for a compilation of where each of all these companies have hired our graduates. So that's a very brief introduction of our program, and I've exceeded by I'm probably on time, right? 15 minutes. Okay, this is my contact. You are welcome to email me, right? So my email is there. You can certainly take a picture. Otherwise, this session is recorded and will be shared. Please do refer to our official site for deadlines, right? Our deadlines have shifted. Right, last year it was December 1st. This year, the deadline is November 15th for communication management. Right, different degree programs have different deadlines. Communication management is certainly one of the earliest, November 15th. Okay, so November 15th for an application deadline for international students. So really encourage you. You have probably about 5-6 weeks to get ready. Right, so please don't miss the deadlines, right? Maximize your chances of being considered. And then per practice, communication management, also supporting the other programs, have set up a official WeChat group, right? And we have current students moderating the group. They're ready to welcome you. They have been in your position last year, right? And they have benefited from their seniors supporting them as they through this application till admission period. So they are very happy to receive you in the group, and also to facilitate any questions you may have. Right. So this WeChat group, right, certainly encourage you to join. So that's the end of my session. All right. Thank you so much, and I will invite my good colleague, Professor Jessica Neff, representing communication data science, to share her deck. All right. Thank you, Jessica.
Great, thank you, Ben. Give me just a moment. I will get my slides shared here. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate your patience. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Neff, and I am the co-director of the Communication Data Science program. And as Allison Hill mentioned at the start of our session, this is a joint degree program that is offered collaboratively by the Annenberg School for Communication and the Viterbi School of Engineering. All right, so Professor Lee already highlighted our ranking at Annenberg. I'd like to emphasize that in the Communication Data Science program, you benefit from being connected to 2 world-class programs. So Annenberg has quite an excellent reputation in the communication and media studies area. Viterbi is also a top-ranked engineering program. So in this program, you really benefit from having world-class faculty across 2 different schools. And so I think that's something that is really unique and special about our degree program. So a little bit more about communication data science. As I said, it's a joint degree program. We have been around since 2016. We have grown consistently year over year. We now are bringing in about 60 students per year, and that's kind of the ideal size for this program. So that's what our incoming classes look like. This is a really unique degree program. So I have yet to find another master's level degree that is collaboratively offered by a school of engineering and a school for communication. So what we're doing in this interdisciplinary degree program is pretty special. Like I said, you're getting the curriculum of these 2 really unique schools and getting a skill set that's kind of unlike any other skill set that is being offered in graduate education. This is a Master of Science program, so it's a STEM designated degree. You are taking, hardcore coding classes over at Viterbi to complement your rigorous curriculum in Annenberg as well. So it's a little bit of a snapshot, and I'll talk more about the specific curriculum in a few moments. All right, so these are numbers from our last application cycle. So I'd like to highlight that Professor Lee was sharing numbers that were specific to China. My numbers are globally. So we are a smaller program, right? We're not getting the same, volume of applications nor the same incoming class size as communication management. But here you can have a sense of kind of what our overall volume was. So we had an incoming class of 59 students for this past academic year. All right, so I'd like to spend some time talking a little bit about this field of interdisciplinary data science, and specifically our curriculum, because as I noted, it's pretty unique in what we're offering. And so we have kind of a Venn diagram here, right, that shows the connection across our two disciplines. And so, if you think on the far left, you have computer science, which is much more theoretical in nature, right? And data science is the kind of application of computer science principles to real world types of problems. And so communication data science sits at the intersection of these two fields. So really what we're preparing students to do is have a deep knowledge and literacy of these foundational data science principles, and to be able to bring them to bear to address problems, challenges that arise from the communication and media industries. So we're really training kind of data native specialists to operate in communication industries. And so from our program description, right, what we aspire to do, and I think we do quite well, is enable our students to acquire what we call a data native mindset, right? To be operating with data in their day-to-day work in a very seamless kind of way. And so our students, have careers that span a range of different positions in communication, content strategy, and data analytics. And so I like to think of this as a degree that prepares students to be boundary spanners. So graduates from this degree program are really uniquely positioned to kind of sit at the intersection of a technical team and a non-technical team, and really able to bridge across those two sides of the house, if you will. In terms of kind of, who is a good fit for this degree program, we have some ability to customize the curriculum for students depending upon your background. So if you are someone who does not have much in the way of technical foundations, our curriculum was designed with that in mind. And so we have kind of a steady ramp up on the engineering curriculum that can take someone who's never written a line of code in their life and get them to an advanced level quite quickly, right? And our language you'd be learning in this program is Python. However, for those of you who may come in with more foundations in the data science arena, there's an ability to take more advanced classes. And so that's a decision that's made in consultation with our engineering advising team. So all that to say, there's an ability of customization to kind of meet you where you're at, depending upon your background. The majority of students in this degree program do come from the communication background. So common undergraduate majors that we see in our applicants are communication, journalism, marketing, public relations. So really the profile is students who do come from communication and related areas, but really just want to bolster their quantitative skill set. So a little bit about what the sort of classes that you would expect to take, our specific curriculum. Like the communication management degree program, we are a 32-unit degree that is generally taken over the course of 2 academic years. And so what I'm highlighting here is our required units. And so it's important to highlight that all of these courses are required, because there's a little bit less flexibility in our curriculum for electives, because we are a dual degree or a joint degree program. you have requirements from both schools. And so on the Viterbi side of the house, you have 3 required classes, starting out with a foundational data science class, DSCI 549. That again, for someone who has no programming background, this gives you the scaffolding to go on and take those more advanced classes. And then you go on to take more advanced data science classes, principles of programming for data science and data science at scale. And then you have 1 elective course available to you at Viterbi, ranging from user interface to security to advanced machine learning classes, depending upon your particular area of interest. On the Annenberg side, we do not have kind of areas of focus in the same way that communication management might. We have 2 required core classes, and then you are able to pick 2 electives. So we have a foundational theory class that you take, and then in your second year, you take a more advanced class that kind of combines the curricula of data science and communication in a class called Data Science for Communication and Social Networks. If you're kind of looking at the roster of potential electives for those 2 Annenberg classes, we kind of shop from the communication management roster of electives. So we have a number of pre-approved electives on our website, and other electives that might be available are available on a kind of case-by-case basis based on my approval, which is generally given. All right, so in terms of a sample course plan, what does a year at, or 2 years at USC look like? So most of our students will take the full 2 years. So in that first fall, we have a year with a cohort of your other students, and most students are taking those 2 foundational classes, 1 data science class and 1 communication class. Then in spring, you'd be taking a second data science core and a communication elective. Most students will choose to take an internship over summer, finish out those 2 final required classes in their second fall semester, and then be wrapping up in spring with your 2 electives. So there is some flexibility, similar to communication management. Students sometimes can finish faster, though I always encourage students to take full advantage of their time at USC and spend 2 years with us. Though we understand cost can be a factor. I don't have a specific slide on cost, but just to mention that the points that Professor Lee made about costs apply to this program as well. So costs, I believe, for all the programs should be roughly equivalent. So you can refer back to that slide for questions about the cost of the program. All right, so the all-important slide that I know you're all attending to is what are some of the application criteria we're looking at? So a lot of our kind of score criteria are very similar to communication management in terms of the types of language and writing scores that we're looking for. So, your communication classes are writing intensive, presentation and speaking intensive. So that becomes really an important requirement for us. We are not requiring the GRE or GMAT for this application cycle and have not for the past few. We also have a math requirement. So this is a really important one that I want to highlight. So if we are looking at your application, we are going to want to see that you have taken college level math classes. We want to see at least a B or equivalent of a B on our scale or better. The sorts of classes we're looking for are calculus, statistics. Those can show up in a variety of different schools in a variety of different ways, but we're looking to see that you have some rigorous math foundations, which becomes really important as for your data science classes to kind of give you that quantitative foundation as you then move on to do more advanced sorts of things. In addition to the scores, right, which are important, kind of holistically, what are we looking at when we're looking at applications? So we are looking at letters of recommendation, of course. Our application is through the Viterbi School of Engineering. So if you're submitting an application to communication data science, you will see that that is through the Viterbi portal. We only require 1 letter of recommendation, but I'd like to highlight that if you submit more than 1, we will absolutely read it. So you are not limited to submitting 1 letter of recommendation. And if you have multiple people who you think can speak to your abilities, I encourage you to submit 2 letters if you like. Similar criteria to what Professor Lee highlighted in terms of letterhead and making sure that it comes from someone who is verifiable. We're also looking at your resume. We want to see what your experience is. Do you have relevant internships or research projects that you might have done that are aligned with our curriculum? I'm looking at, your performance in your undergraduate classes, specifically both in quantitative and non-quantitative classes. Looking at things like GPA, really looking at your statement of purpose. And a big variable for me in communication data science when I'm looking at files is fit, right? I want to make sure that, our degree program is a good fit for you and that you're a good fit for us. And so one way that I can really evaluate that is through the statement of purpose. So that's your opportunity to highlight to the admissions committee why this degree in particular is the best one for you. So really think about that as you are crafting that statement of purpose. And keep moving here to talk a bit about careers. So as a relatively new program, right, we've been just starting to really accumulate some more robust data on our alumni and figuring out where exactly are they going, what are the roles that they're particularly well equipped to be in. And I would say across the board, students are in analyst types of roles. So working in data analyst types of roles, generally in kind of communication and media and entertainment organizations. So that is really common role. Also working in a marketing capacity, working as a marketing analyst. So I think that's probably the most common type of job that our students kind of walk into. Another job that is a really good fit for graduates from this program are jobs in kind of product management and design. So people who are working, again, to design digital products, to kind of serve as that boundary spanner role between technical and non-technical stakeholders within an organization. And so that is something that our graduates are really, I think, uniquely well equipped to do. We've also had a number of students who are working in market research roles, so kind of consumer insights, really in a more quantitative sort of way, right? So kind of being able to crunch numbers and derive insights about, kind of key consumers and target audiences for clients. So we've had students end up in a lot of different types of roles as well, but I would say that these are some of the most common from looking at our most recent alumni data. All right. So, highlighting some companies, recent job placements, both from internships and jobs from students. So we've seen students at a range of, financial services companies, technology companies, top media companies. So really a wide span of different types of job placements. Also, we are in Silicon Beach here in Los Angeles. We have a really vibrant tech community. And so I have a lot of students who have ended up in, roles at startup organizations, companies. They're kind of, boots on the ground, starting out in these companies that are just starting to grow and scale. So a lot of different types of opportunities and exciting roles that our students have ended up in. All right. And so I think I even ended up a little bit early this evening, but I'm providing my my contact information here. You've got my email address. I encourage you to reach out to me directly if you have any questions. A lot of times I will field requests from students who are wondering if their math classes will fulfill our requirements. So if you are in that situation and you don't know whether your math classes will fit the bill, I encourage you to write to me and I can provide some guidance on that particular point. And I think, I will also highlight, I did not mention our application deadline is later than communication management. So we are December 15th. So if you're applying to communication data science, you have a little bit more time, but we do have a hard deadline of December 15th. So just keep that in mind that we, again, different application process, different system, different deadline from the other programs that you'll be hearing from. And to the application guidelines page on the School of Engineering website. You may have noticed we have two websites, one for each school, but if you want the direct link to our application, you'll find that on the Viterbi School of Engineering website. So I'll leave this up for just a few moments and appreciate your time and look forward to hearing from any of you who may want to reach out.
Right. We'll answer questions. So we have actually a question from the live streaming platform. So we appreciate your interest. So we'll answer those questions after all presenters have have an opportunity to share their programs. All right. Thank you for being patient.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. And now with that, I'll turn things over to my colleagues with the digital social media program. And I think Daniela Barofio will be kicking things off for that program. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Let me get the screen going. We've done this for 3 years, right? But it's still, I still get slowed down here. Okay. Thank you all for being here. It's very exciting to be able to tell you a bit more about the DSM program. With us is also Freddie Nager, the Associate Director. He will talk a little bit more about curriculum objectives and just a broader function of the DSM curriculum and what we are aiming to accomplish with you and have you earn as your skill sets as you graduate. So real briefly, actually, before I go here, the program was launched in 2018. So it's kind of young as well. We started in 2018 with 40 students, and we now have currently 450 students, but we brought in 150 this year. We brought in 130 last year. So in other words, there's a clear indication for us that what our students are learning in our program is being recognized in industry, because students keep coming back, and a lot of them come from having heard about their experience from other alumni. So there's a real interesting tight-knit community that I'm starting to see form around the DSM students in particular. The other thing that I think is interesting to point out about DSM is that we are a Master's of Science, as the title indicates, but we are housed in a humanities school. And this says a lot about how we've structured what the skill sets are that we are offering you through our classes. I used to want to refer to it as sort of bridging the gap between the left and the right brain, but I think it's safer to really highlight, especially after Dr. Neff's presentation, highlight that one distinction between CDS, communication data science, and DSM is we tend to take more of the qualitative bend. In other words, our students are creative, entrepreneurial, they are storytellers. We are really existing in that space that is the digital space, and most of our students end up working in those types of capacities, either in the tech industry, in the gaming industry, some in the entertainment industry, but for the most part in the tech and gaming industries. And to that end, I think this slide is interesting, and I think helps you think about where you'd be located, were you to come to DSM. And it's that intersection that is vital, it's crucial, it's constantly changing. One of the things you'll see when you go onto our website is that we do have additional classes in addition to the mandatory that I'll talk about in a minute, but not that many. Most of them are special topics classes, and that's in part because the industries that we're talking about and that you'd be working in and existing in change constantly. An app that existed a month ago may have been killed 3 weeks later, and something else popped up. So part of our job then in the mandatory sections is to help you get a sense of the landscape, identify where your expertise wants to lie. What are you good at? What do you not like to do? That's also important. And then those special topics courses kick in to help us think more about what's currently vital, what might be interesting for you to bring to a future employer. And Freddie, I'd love for you to jump in a little bit, but I'd like for you to go back to this slide in the conversation, because I think you've got great experience professionally and academically in this sort of triangle. We have had, as I said, a lot of success. This particular round, we actually had 990 applicants, and our typical admit rate is 24%. And so I would say we're competitive. But you're not just competing with actually, I shouldn't make assumptions about whether you've been in the workforce or not, but we have a wide range. There's a term used in academia or by administrators, fresh outs, or students who've just completed their undergrad and they're therefore fresh out, and then those that are professional. And we've got a good combination of both, which I think is interesting and speaks to some of the technical skills that you're going to be learning with us. The program can be completed in 3 semesters, which is a year. That would be fall, spring, summer. But I advise against it. If you have no extensive work experience and are not in a rush, your real return on investment is spending time on campus. In fact, one of the things that I oftentimes tell students is 70% of the learning comes from a classroom. For the most part, it's about building a network. And I know Freddie will speak to this as well, but it's about attending workshops. It's meeting people. That's where that return truly lies. There may be times in which you want to take a class, but it's filled up, and you'll hear me say, not a big deal. Contact a faculty member, take them out to lunch, ask them, what should I be reading, right? Because that's a one-on-one that you don't get in a classroom. So you have to build your experience, not just based on which classes you take, but the people that you meet, the events that you attend, the opportunities that you take. On that note, though, there are 4 mandatory courses. It's a 32-unit program. If you complete it in 1 year, you're done in the summer, but again, that's very fast. Typically, students take 2 classes in the fall, 2 in the spring, perhaps 1 in the summer, but I really recommend interning in the summer, and 2 in the fall and then 2 in the following spring. And the 2 that you start with, and they're cohort based, there'll be large sections with multiple instructors, or DSM 510 and DSM 520. And you will complete the methods requirements in the spring with DSM 550. You don't have to remember any of these names and numbers, but I just want you to see the trajectory that we're taking you on. You're starting with classes that are going to give you an overview of the industry and an overview of media management and how to navigate the different sectors of a company. You're not trained as a lawyer, but you're going to have to deal with legal. You're not trained as a coder, but you're going to have to understand how the engineering mind works. And that's really, in essence, the direction. At the end of the program, whether that be the fall or the spring, you will complete a capstone. And I will let Freddie describe that, because he's been teaching them recently. And so he can tell you a bit more about what is expected and what students do in the capstone. But the capstone is a terrific opportunity to create something that becomes evidence of what it is that you're capable of. It's an opportunity for anybody wanting to hire you to see how you think, what kind of questions have you raised? If there was a problem, how did you tackle it? So I don't need you to start thinking about the capstone at all right now, but I want you to know, as you enter the program, if you apply and are admitted next fall, you're going to want to start thinking about what that final portfolio piece wants to be. Here, I just want to draw attention to what I was saying earlier, which is please slow down if you can. We have a number of opportunities. Annenberg is incredibly culturally rich. We bring in guest speakers. Our dean is very well known and connected in the industries, both tech and entertainment, and people like to come and talk to our students. So be there when they come. That also means that you're going to want to take some time and not have more than 2 classes, ideally. We have a media center. Students work in the media center. In fact, I'd say a good 50% of our DSM students start their experience at USC through the media center, and they have a whole number of desks, whether it's the news, whether it's the music side. There's plenty for you to do, and they want you there as well. And here I'm going to stop for a minute, and I'm going to go back here because I'd love for you to hear from our associate director as well and his thoughts behind what we're looking at.
Thank you, Daniela. I just want to say that one thing I love about our program is how many creative people are in it. I come from a creative background as an advertising copywriter, but I also fortunately stumbled into technology over 30 years ago. And a lot of our students are the same way. Some of them are photographers, some of them are creators, some of them are entrepreneurs. And so what they're looking to do now is take their creativity and their ideas online using digital media. And the faculty, we have an amazing faculty, a combination of scholars, but also professionals who can help you bring your ideas to the digital world. And as this is a good illustration, a lot of our students want to learn user experience, become user experience experts, but they also need to know how it applies to business and how that matters in terms of revenue models and business models, and of course, using UX and business to improve technology. So this is a program for people who want to take initiative. It's not for somebody who just wants to sit back and do their homework and hide in a library. This is a very proactive group of students. Daniela mentioned the capstone program where we actually have you create. Our capstone is not about writing an academic paper, even though that is an option. Rather, we have students actually build websites. They create video series. They even launch businesses. A student last year launched his own digital media studio, starting with the capstone program. So we're very excited about that. I also want to talk a little bit about what we mean when we say Masters of Science. We want to create digital media scientists. That doesn't mean you wear a white coat and work in a lab. It means that you understand theory, that you know how to use data, but more importantly, that you're open to experimenting. And we're excited about all this new technology. Daniela and I are learning the technologies as they come as well. This year, as an example, for the first time, I required artificial intelligence use for my assignments in class. Students were required to use ChatGPT to help write a paper. And that was experimental for the students. It was experimental for myself as well. And so far, I think the results have been amazing. So I hope you'll join us if you are interested in creating something new, in experimenting, and being part of a really exciting group of students.
Thank you, Freddie. Thank you for that. And I think it's a very apt description of our students. Creative. We've gone through these slides. Our requirements are the same. I do on occasion get the question as to whether I would look at the GRE score if you've taken the GRE, and the answer is no. So don't even take it. We're not looking at it. Same goes here as well to letters of recommendation. Here, be wise. Pick someone who knows you. Ideally, if you are a fresh out, it would be certainly a professor who has known you well, and then somebody who knows you professionally. But we don't put all that much weight on the recommendation. Where the recommendation becomes interesting is if it's someone who indicates to us knowing you and having seen you grow. We've discussed this with the other professors. We don't need to spend time on that. The personal statement, however, I want to pause on a second. The only way we get to know you, aside from when you contact us, which I recommend you do, contact Freddie and I and set up a time so we can determine in a one-on-one on Zoom or a call whether we are the right fit or not. It's particularly painful if we're not, for you and for us. So let's make sure that we are where you need to be. But the personal statement is that opportunity where you get to explain something. I can't tell you how frequently I've had students with a perhaps not impressive GPA, but because they took the time to clarify what happened, and life happens, it gave us an understanding of this student's strengths and focus and determination. And that's what we want to see. So try to be self-reflective as you begin to write your statement, and don't worry about what is it that they want to hear. We want to hear you. So make that simple for yourself. The resume is the obvious, you know, that writing sample is a question that we often get, in part because we want to attract creative students, we want to attract professionals and entrepreneurs. We are not going to rely too heavily on an academic paper written for a class a year and a half ago. What we want to see instead is, what have you been doing now? Do you have something that you posted online? Do you have a LinkedIn example? Do you have something that can give us a sense as to what you do on the work, on the job, if you've done it, or what you do creatively? Oops. If you recognize that song, that's The Godfather. I am Italian. And so I feel like I can own that stereotype a little bit. And here, Freddie, would you mind talking a bit through where we've seen our students go? Because now we've got a good database.
Sure. Our students, almost all of them want to stay in Los Angeles. Everyone who comes here falls in love with Los Angeles. And the beauty of LA is it's not just Hollywood, all right? Actually, I'll be honest, it's a little difficult for international students to get into the Hollywood studios. But instead, there are many opportunities throughout LA. Gaming companies, a lot of our students go into video games, and they go into positions like user acquisition. A lot of them want to work for social media companies, and those companies like YouTube and TikTok have offices here in Los Angeles. Some of them want to work for digital media agencies and advertising agencies, and Los Angeles is a hot spot for agency work. Some of them want to go work for traditional tech companies like Google, and that is certainly here in Los Angeles. So Los Angeles offers a wealth of opportunities. At the same time, we do have alumni who go off to New York, who return to Europe, who return to China. So there are opportunities everywhere. The roles are as diverse as the students themselves. Some of them want to go work in user experience. Some want to work in search engine optimization. Some want to do pure marketing. And I have a marketing background, so I often find myself in my office coaching students one-on-one on marketing strategy. Obviously, a lot of students want to go work for Chinese companies, but work in their global divisions, in their international marketing divisions. As an example, both ByteDance and Tencent have large offices here in Los Angeles. And many of our students go intern in those offices and eventually stay there. That way they get the best of both worlds. They get a Chinese corporation, but they get to work and play here in Los Angeles.
Wonderful, thank you. I want to conclude here by giving you just a final sense as to what that DSM community looks like. We're one of the most diverse programs in the sense that we have students, a large number of students from China, but we have students from India, and we have students from Europe, we have students from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and that's in part because, and actually I should also mention Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and these students tend to come because the governments are recognizing the value of a digital scientist. And so you'll come into a classroom that is highly diverse, that is very global, which is very appropriate for all of these industries that you're interested in going into and companies. Finally, that's us. You have our information. I would recommend that you review the programs that you're interested in. And if your interest falls on DSM as well, contact us, set up a time, give us a day or two. Obviously, if we don't respond right away, contact us again. We're right in the midterm period, but we have had most success in determining and assisting students through these one-on-one sessions where we can really identify what it is that you want to be and do, and whether we are, in fact, the place for you to be at. And I think I'll leave that up here for a minute. And I will pass it on to you, Ben, or Bob. Actually, I apologize. Ben, you jumped in earlier and I wasn't sure, but
Yep, it's Bob. Yeah, thank you.
Bob, please, welcome.
Oh, thank you. And hello, everyone. My name is Bob Banks. I'm the director of the Master of Public Diplomacy program here at Annenberg. For those of you who aren't familiar with public diplomacy, I might describe it by comparing it to traditional diplomacy, which is one country's government talking to another. Public diplomacy, on the other hand, is one country's government talking to another country's people. And this is a growing field. In the last several decades, public diplomacy has become an essential instrument of statecraft for many countries and non-state actors. China's Confucius Institutes, for example, are an element, a component of China's public diplomacy. With respect to our program, we are the first such program in the world, and unique in that we are the only one, at least in the United States that I know of, that issues a M.P.D degree, a degree exclusively and uniquely in public diplomacy. Our effort is devoted to providing you with a professional foundation so that you're ready to hit the ground running when you enter the professional world. Unlike some of the programs you've heard about tonight, we are quite small. We admit between 20 and 30 students per year. But I find that is really a great benefit to us. We get to know the students get to know us. And they get to know each other very well, too. They're very strong alumni connections among them. We also have a very diverse mix of students. We're very pleased about that. We have currently in the program students from China, Korea, Japan, Indonesia, Uganda, Saudi Arabia, Kazakhstan, Canada, Thailand, and on. And this is really beneficial, I think, to all of us, since we're dealing with communication in a multicultural world. Having students from around the world with us really gives us a good entree into how to communicate across cultures. You can customize our degree depending on your career aspirations. In fact, we encourage that. You can set your own pace for the most part through the program, depending on your capacity to work and your career aspirations. Some of the program features that we like to highlight and that are unique are that our students publish the only student-run newspaper, or rather magazine, on public diplomacy in the world. We generally turn out one edition per year. We also have a strong student organization, a student association called the Society of Public Diplomats. They put on professional programs, social events, and they are a liaison between the students and the faculty. And so we have regular meetings with the board every semester. We also have opportunities for travel within the program. Every year during spring break, our students have traditionally gone to Washington, D.C. for orientation briefings at a variety of public diplomacy institutions. This past spring, we were able to send 15 of our students to Turkey for a week on a public diplomacy research trip. And we also like to highlight the fact that we're here in LA, one of the content and creative capitals of the world, and provides such a great opportunity to meet some of the most creative people producing film, music, games, and so on in the United States and beyond. In terms of the program itself, it's 32 credits total, 16 core, 16 elective. The core classes are these. One is the first two you would likely take are an introduction to public diplomacy, its history and background. And then PubD 504 is a team-based class in which we give you a global issue every week and ask you to come up with a public diplomacy strategy to deal with that issue. And that is a team-oriented exercise. Then we offer also a class required in public diplomacy evaluation and a capstone, which we call the practicum, in which you can choose what you want to do. It's an independent study, not class-based, classroom-based. But you can do a project or a paper for that, a research paper. And we've had a lot of very interesting projects produced as a result of that practicum. We also offer the entire range of Annenberg classes for you if you're more interested in concentrating on the digital space, including data management, digital storytelling, media analytics, etc. In terms of the public diplomacy programs themselves, there's a broad range currently, ranging from exchanges, cultural diplomacy, regional studies, which focus on East Asia and Latin America, public diplomacy and global security, and we're just introducing a new class this spring on public diplomacy and democracy. I know everyone is interested in where our students get employed, and this is a list of the various places where our students have gotten jobs in the last 4 or 5 years. About 25% of our students get jobs in the private sector, ranging from Disney, ABC News, Facebook, etc. 25% end up working at a university or going on to get an advanced degree in communications. 20% of our students are employed in the nonprofit world, the NGO sector. And another 20% get jobs within government, whether it's federal government, state or local government, or even international organizations. Recently, we did a review of employment for our Chinese graduates in particular. And in the last couple of years, we've had students accept marketing positions in Shanghai and in Los Angeles. 3 of our students in recent years have gone on to PhD programs, one now teaching at San Diego, 2 others at universities in Hong Kong. We also have a student at the UN, and then added an assortment of Chinese companies. What we are looking for are the following: academic excellence, diversity, international experience, relevant work, internship or volunteer activities, and a clear sense of your career goals, what you want to do when you graduate. I hope Allison could put my email address in the chat so that you can all reach out to me if you have any questions for me. I'm happy to answer them, or if you'd like to talk by phone or Zoom at some point, happy to do that as well. Now I'll turn it back to Allison, for I believe we're going to do some question and answer.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much. So if you would like to write your questions in the chat, that would be great. We did have a question earlier about if a student did not have math, would they be able to be admitted to the communication data science degree program? So let's start with that one.
Hi, okay, so if you had no math at all is the question.
Yes.
As a general rule, no. We have made conditional admissions a handful over the years for exceptional students who did not have the math requirement, but were, exemplary on all other counts. But this is not the standard path. So for students, I recommend that if you haven't taken math, you can take that, right? And you can also submit documentation to us right before you come to USC, or as part of your application. You can let us know if you have an intention to or have enrolled in math classes. So if you haven't taken math, it doesn't mean you can't apply at all, but you need to demonstrate to us what the plan is for taking those math classes and I would also like to highlight that we do not accept Coursera or other kind of online programs like that. It needs to be a math class from an accredited university program.
Okay,
So
great. I think anyone can answer this question. I think it would be the same for all. If I don't have an academic paper, may I use a professional report from work as my writing sample?
Yes, I can answer that. The short answer is yes, you can. All right, you can use your professional report as a writing sample. At the same time, I also want to correct sort of an assumption. I think what we would like to see, what we prefer to see as a writing sample is your best academic work. It doesn't have to be in English, of course, in English, and it doesn't have to be about, in the field of communication. For example, if your best paper in English was written about literature or history or sociology or some aspect of where some intensive writing is involved, we're happy to take a look at that. All right, and I will say 3 years is not that long. From your graduation, you should have still have access to your papers, right? And happy to have other program directors chime in.
I definitely would not worry about whether it's an academic paper or not. The more recent and most reflective of your style, your way of thinking, that's what we're looking for. And in many cases, it's actually professional, something you've done at work. But again, if you have a good paper is good too.
Right, thank you. We can move on to the questions. I want to be sure we
Okay,
have.
great. There's a question about the GRE and GMAT, that it's not required or we won't request it. The reality is the university has waived the requirement to submit GRE or GMAT scores. And as said earlier, if submitted, they're not used in the selection process at all. So the requirement is waived. We are not looking for or expecting, nor will we ask for GRE or GMAT scores.
I think the question also is asking, is it only for the coming admission year 2024, or is it sort of like ongoing, right? I would
the
say
university is making it 1 year at a time announcement whether or not the GRE or GMAT is required. So we don't know for 2025.
All right. We have Professor Banks' email, right? If you'd like to contact him, you can see it there. Okay, so is 108 a cutoff score? I imagine you're referring to the TOEFL. I would say it's not a hard cutoff, but it's the place where, for example, I would start, right? And certainly, if let's say your TOEFL is 107, 106, we are happy to consider that if your other criteria are strong, right? Your GPA, the reputation of your undergraduate institution, and all of that, right? So it's not a hard cutoff. I would say for reference, the average TOEFL score, average, right? Meaning there are some higher and a few that are lower. The average TOEFL score in communication management is 110, right? So that's quite high. And so if you are dramatically lower than that, you're not a strong candidate, likely. All right. Thank you. All right, please ask questions. 其他直播间的同学们有兴趣，对我们项目有兴趣直接问不用太猥琐谢谢。I just invite the others viewers in the various live streaming to post their questions. All right.
Okay, there's a question about do we accept TOEFL best score? And yes, we'll accept the best score. However, we won't look at higher score in the various sections of the exam. So we're looking at your composite best score. We won't pick and choose listening, best writing, of that nature. So let's see. Okay, there are no additional questions in the chat.
Okay. There's a question for communication data science. Is the application reviewed by both Viterbi and Annenberg? and the diploma is issued by which school? So that question is more for Jeff.
Sure. Yes, all application files are reviewed jointly by faculty in School for Engineering and School for Communication, and the degree is conferred by, and the diploma is issued by the Viterbi School of Engineering.
Right, and I should emphasize. I did not highlight this point in my slides, but I think it's common knowledge, right? Communication management is not STEM, right? So while digital social media and communication data science, they are STEM designated degrees. So if having a longer OPT is important to you, you should definitely consider STEM, right? Question for Professor Neff: what's the average GPA for admitted students in CDF?
Great question. So I don't have the average of admitted students available right this moment offhand. I can tell you that similar to communication management, we are I'm looking, again, not a hard cutoff, but 3.5, 3.6 GPA is kind of where I'm looking, right, as I'm starting to sort people. Not to say that if you're lower, you won't be looked at, but that's kind of a starting point for me as I'm starting my initial review of files.
All right, thank you. Looking at questions from one the streaming rooms. Do you have an age limitation? Absolutely not, right? It's in fact discriminatory, right? If in fact the longer your professional experience, the more substantial your professional experience, you're actually welcome, more than welcome. And in fact, for at least for communication management, if you have more than 7 years of professional experience, that makes you quite exceptional. And I'll weigh the professional experience more heavily, meaning, right, if let's say your other academic performance or even your school is not as strong, but I'm willing to consider that your professional experience is more, right?
There's a question in the chat about the joint program between USC Annenberg and the London School for Economics and Political Science. That program was not presented this evening. However, there will be an information session offered, so you're invited to go to our Connect and Visit website. That will appear in the chat in just a moment, and you can see when that information session will be held.
Question from the live streaming platform: what kind of support can USC give to international students? If you are referring to financial aid, I think you'll be somewhat disappointed, right? We don't have too much financial aid for international applicants, right? We often have conditions attached to our financial aid. And I would say being a U.S. citizen, permanent resident is often one of those conditions, right? Career services for Chinese students, right? I think we have a very robust, right, attention to career services. In fact, just recently we held multiple sessions with our alums who are both established in the United States and also have, for example, successful in the Quzhou, and they've gotten very attractive positions with the top companies. And in a very difficult year, we know the employment prospects in the last 2 years has been somewhat difficult, and our students still get offers from like top FMCG companies and also the various internet companies in China. All right, and then we have a career office based in Shanghai, and the colleagues in USC Shanghai, all right, they are responsible for a lot of our access to the different opportunities here, right? We just held another session with our career services staff that are based in China, right? And myself, I travel to China. Used to be 4 times a year before the pandemic, and probably after the pandemic now, we're 2 times a year, and certainly maintain the relationships with our alums, and then also connect with different companies, right? And we have a very robust series of activities, especially for international students, right? With program directors, Ready in Asia, and other colleagues, right? We have, for example, launched a career workshop seminar series specifically for international students, right? And that launched last year. We filled almost every Friday, right? And this year we are continuing the same, right? We have alums from who are from Google. We've invited, right, successful entrepreneurs, right, who have established themselves in the United States, and to come and share their experiences. So we are very mindful of the challenges, especially for international students. We've already held, multiple information sessions, and this is just October, right? This is less than 2 months from the start of it. So a lot of career support, right? Also, our Annenberg has a specific career services team, and many events. You often have specific career fairs. We have visits to companies, and this is ongoing throughout the year. We are very aware of the China's calendar, right? Qizhao, and in fact, you'll find that our course curriculum allows you to take a leave of absence during your second year in the fall, so you can be back in China for Qizhao if that's what you like to pursue. So I would say our attention to Korea has been certainly been very active, and we're always building on more, right?
I'll just I just wanted to add that if you're in the communication data science program, you have the career services teams of both schools available to you. So Viterbi also has its own series of programming and events, and a career services team. And so you, as a student in the joint degree program, you have both of those available to you. And Viterbi has quite a great number of events as well.
All right, thank you. If other program directors are happy with our responses, we can proceed. Tuition slide. Okay, I can do that. All right, give me a second. I'll bring that piece up. Give me a second.
Okay, there's a question about how many degree programs to which a student may apply. You may apply to up to 3 degree programs that start in the same term. So here is the tuition slide again for those of you who needed to see it once more. Thank you, Ben.
Okay. Yeah, so essentially I would say 1.1 million RMB, okay? 110万人民币大概是2年的费用, right? So two years, probably 1.1 million RMB by the last exchange rate, all right? Okay, question, will you treat...
For DSM, I can jump in. I believe I saw a question about whether it's important to have career experience. The answer is no, although some do. And what that gives you is a better sense as to what you want to be and what you want to do. So it gives you greater focus. If you don't have that background experience, you'll find what it is that you, where you'd like to work through the program. So I would not hesitate to apply if you feel that you don't have enough career experience.
Right. All right, thank you. I'll do a stop share, right? Because I can't actually lose the screen. Right. Let me answer the other question. Will you treat? I'll speak for communication management. Right? whether U.S. undergraduate and Chinese undergraduate, meaning undergraduate from Chinese university, differently. We are aware of the differences in terms of what we can see in terms of their academic performance and that. So, for example, if you're from a U.S. universities, and certainly from those that we are familiar with, right? For example, our various University of California, for example, UCLA, UC Berkeley, and the like, we are definitely very familiar with it, right? So we because we have a long history of evaluating students from those institutions, and today they would include various universities that send, right, very significant numbers, right? New York University, Penn State, Ohio, Columbus, University of Ohio, Columbus, right, and such, right. Chinese universities, often the question we get is that, how are you going to evaluate my GPA, right? And given that different universities, different schools, different majors have different different standards. And I will say again, we have a long history of from universities whose graduates have been successful. So we know, right? So we know. And I would say in most other respects, the qualifications are comparable. So I often see, regardless of whether the applicant is from a U.S. institution or a Chinese institution, they have internships at, right, similar type of companies, often the various internet Dachang and also FMCG companies and all that. So I would say they are comparable. We are familiar with the differences, so we know how to um, evaluate essentially according to the pool, right? So I would say the key is not to worry about it. Do your best. We certainly welcome applications from essentially globally, and we're very familiar with the institutions that have been sending their students to us. Right?
Bob, there's a question.
Yeah.
Bob, there's a question about the difference between M.P.D and M.P.A or M.P.P. Would you like to respond to that one?
Sure. M.P.D, the public diplomacy program, and public diplomacy generally exists at the intersection of foreign affairs and communication. A lot of schools teach one or the other. Public diplomacy combines the two. It gives you the ability to operate in the international space, connecting with the diversity of the international community. M.P.P is generally focused on public policy, meaning how government sets policy, and focused normally and largely on domestic issues and how those play out within government and the forces that move government to take action. So we have a foreign affairs focus that certainly public policy doesn't.
Oh, Bob, you cut up. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no. All right. Okay. No, you were good. Thank you.
Not sure where I left off, but to be honest, PD and public policy are near cousins, but one focuses largely on the international environment, whereas the other focuses more on the domestic environment.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'll probably I can answer the question on most programs' behalf, right? Does Annenberg allow admitted students to defer if their plans change? The short answer is yes. You're allowed to defer, right? We don't use the word defer. We say update your application for a year, but only for 1 year, right? So because the composition and the quality of the competitiveness of the students really change in 2 years. Okay, so I think that's pretty standard for many programs, right? If other program directors have different policies, please feel free to chime in. Right. Yes, and Dean Hill has also answered the question, right? Update to the next available term, right? If you ask, for example, oh, if I can't come in fall, can I come in the spring? The answer, at least for communication management, is no, right? We have a particular sequence of classes that we start in the fall and only in the fall, right? And so you have to be ready to, if you can't start in essentially, if you can't arrive in Los Angeles in mid-August, right? You should consider deferring for like postponing your entry for another year. All right. We have a question from the streaming room, right? My child major in digital media, intelligent media design, right? Is it acceptable for DSM, right? So this is a question for Kelly.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that'd bring a real interesting perspective to the classroom. Absolutely, yes. And remember, we don't have, unlike CDS, we don't have specific requirement for, math, for instance. So the answer is yes.
Right. Thank you. Question, I think that's for Bob. For M.P.D, can students choose elective classes from communication management or DSM?
Bob, you're muted.
Yeah, yes, you can choose classes from the full range offered by the Annenberg School. We also allow you to take up to 8 credits outside of Annenberg. So some of our students are interested in combining public diplomacy with exposure to cinema or law or business. And so on a case-by-case basis, if the class that they want to take is related or relevant to PD in some way, then we generally allow them to take that class.
For DSM as well, I should have mentioned that during our presentation, we allow you to take classes within Annenberg, and those are considered Annenberg classes. Anything outside, 8 units, as with what we just heard, can be taken outside. We also have students, and many more this particular semester, taking certificate degrees. So they actually take extra classes over at Marshall, and those don't count towards DSM per se, because they're part of that certificate program. And you can look up more about that, or we can talk about it some more if you want to reach out to me. But you are taking classes in comm management, you can take classes in public relations, you can take classes over at Viterbi.
Yes. Yeah. Can choose classes from students choose classes from Marshall for communication management? Yes, within approved range, right? Generally, out of 32 units, you can take 8 units outside of communication. So certainly in the Marshall School of Business, classes are a popular choice. So that allows you quite a range of different coursework to be configured. Now, classes outside of communication management, or broadly the school of communication needs to be approved, right? And you'll receive much more information when you join the program. Okay. And Professor Neff also added a detail, right? Jessica, you can probably elaborate.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in that the communication data science policy is a little bit different. And students in our program are only permitted to take classes within Viterbi and Annenberg, and we don't permit electives outside of our 2 schools.
Mm. 我现在补一句啊，在抖音上的朋友啊，欢迎啊，可能抖音推给你，是你意想不到的。不过希望这个直播你也有收获。Right, so I just greeted our viewers on Douyin. Right, they were surprised that why the platform recommended this particular live stream to them, and there was some surprise. I just welcomed them and said, "I hope you learned something regardless." We have 37,000 viewers on 抖音啊，抖音里的37000观众啊，欢迎Whoa, 50,000. 总共5万多人哦，哇，太猛了啊！We were really quite surprised. 50,000 viewers. Alison, we have to share this about you.
Wow.
Really, thank you, Terence and the team. It's really amazing, right?
I see a question for me in the chat about the qualities that we look for in candidates. Great question. And I think probably the qualities that we're looking for are probably shared across the programs. Of course, we're looking for students who have academic excellence. We're looking for students who have demonstrated an interest in a particular area, right? Through projects, through internships, through coursework, right? That kind of shows a particular area of focus. We're looking for people who are enthusiastic and curious and creative, and want to come to graduate school to learn and grow and explore. And so I would say that there's not a single set of criteria that I'm looking for, but really just looking for people who are aligned with our degree in terms of their objectives and their careers, who obviously have strong academic foundations and who are excited and eager to learn and can demonstrate that to us.
Thank you. I'm looking at the live stream on different screen. Right, there's a question that England's MPhil, I mentioned it's a master in philosophy. Can that applicant apply to our PhD programs? And this session is not about the PhD program, and Dean Hill can give more information about our information sessions for our PhD program. Right.
I placed in the chat the connect and visit link where you'll find opportunities for information session. Because the application deadline is December 1, you can anticipate a November information session for the PhD program. Also, this month, we will be hosting the Prospective Graduate Student Days, and you can RSVP for that program. There will be academic sessions, including the good folks who are represented here today, as well as student panels. So I would encourage you all to consider the Prospective Graduate Student Days as another way to learn more about our variety of degree programs and also to enjoy a perspective from student panels. And it's hosted virtually on Zoom, so you can participate from your office or from your home.
Okay, we have an extended question from Sophie Tara, right? Right, I'll read it out for our benefit. I graduated 15 years ago, worked in the communication field for so long. Digital transformation is crucial. Right, appreciate your interest. Right, I'm looking for an opportunity to start any digital marketing project related to my previous work experience. Would you like to recommend a program that could help? Right, so that's the first question. As I've graduated for years, what if I cannot get to recommendation? Is there any fellowship that I could have, right? I can answer the last question. Is there any fellowship? If you're looking again for financial aid, right, in terms of support, right, financial support, I'm sorry that will I think will be very little in terms of support. If graduated for years could not get 2 recommendations, we will accept in such cases when if you've been a working professional for extended period of time, I would say we will consider recommendations from 2 professional sources. So yeah, whether it's a client or supervisor, right? Happy to consider that. I understand if you've lost touch with your professors from 15 years ago. All right. Right. So those I hope that answers your question. Digital marketing project, I would say many of our programs allow you to do that, right? And certainly communication management, our heaviest concentration is in marketing. And I'll let digital social media program directors also elaborate on that. I imagine you qualify for multiple programs, right? And you certainly have choices.
Yeah, same goes with DSM. I think it might be helpful if this answer is actually discussed one-on-one, because I think we're looking into deeper questions around whether it makes sense to come back to school, makes sense to do a digital marketing project and choose a program as a result of that, or whether instead you want to build on it. So I would say send us an email, whoever you want to speak with. I will certainly be available to Zoom with you and think through this a little bit.
Yeah. There's a question asking, 方便问一下传媒学院最难录取是哪几个项目？I mean, you're asking which program in the school in the Annenberg school is most difficult to get to be admitted. I would say they're roughly comparable, right? And certainly it's often a question on number of applications versus the numbers we are looking to admit. Right. So I would say there's no one program that is dramatically more easier. Right. That's probably the point of question. Right. And so really I would say you have to look at your interest. Right. And I would say many applicants apply to multiple programs within Annenberg, and often they are admitted to more than one. Right. So I hope that answers your question.
I would like to add to that real quickly. No, there must be this wanting to find that one place that feels safer, finding out which program is harder to get into or easier to get into. But it's going to take so much courage for you to just even join this session tonight. So you owe it to yourself to really figure out what is exactly what you want and what you're made and built to want to learn from. So again, reach out. Let's make sure you're the right fit.
This question, do I need to translate my writing sample from Chinese to English? That's the wrong question to ask. Your writing sample should be in English, in original English. So if you do not have a college level work written in English, you're probably not well positioned for our programs, right? We are very particular about our language proficiencies, right? Both writing and speaking. We are I would say, what we call a very talky school. There are endless presentations you have to do for your classes. So if you are translating from Chinese to English, that does not indicate a strong foundation, right? So thank you so much for joining us, right? So yeah, thank you so much, right? And do refer to our official sites for application information, and then we hope to receive your materials, right?